We're hooked on overages, and this is step number 3, the list. This is one of my favorite steps. Today's focus. What is a list? Where to find the lists, who controls the lists, how to request, and some helpful list gathering suggestions, as well as some ideas about mistakes you cannot make and must avoid. Let's start with what is a list. A list is a collection of information. It's a collection of claims. And surprisingly, it may not even be in list form. We're hoping for a spreadsheet that makes our life much easier. But it may be a stack of claims. It may be, well, who knows what it is? But it's whatever they've got. We're going to get whatever they've got. Sometimes I get just a handwritten note that says, here's the claim. We only have this one. Happens all the time. So don't get locked into a list being some sort of formal spreadsheet. You may never see that. You may just get a big stack of documents in the mail. But in that list and in those documents, typically there's going to be the claim amount. There's going to be the claimant's name and at least his former address, some address probably. If it's a tax sale, there'll likely be a tax parcel number or some other information about that property. There'll be the date of the sale typically, and probably maybe even the winning bid and the amount of overage. All those kinds of things are typical to what we receive in terms of the lists. So it may not be in list form, and it may just be a whole stack of papers, but that's enough to get us started. And whatever we get, that's what we're calling the list. Where do we find lists? It's a little bit tricky, but you just have to understand whatever government agency is responsible for those funds likely has some sort of way to account for them. We would think they would have a list. Now, lists are maintained by other agencies in charge of monitoring some of these agencies. So it may be that there is, well, on a county level, say in my state of Washington, everybody has their overages, but they also report to the Department of Revenue, who is in contact with all of them. And they report exactly the funds that have gone in and out, and it may make sense then to go directly to the state to get sort of the overview list rather than go to the individual counties. Well, I still would start with the individual counties to see what's what. It's probably quicker and easier, but don't overlook the fact that there may be a possibility of getting a short-circuited sort of way to get to more lists than you could ever imagine. If you don't know what agency is responsible, you just need to ask. Since we're going to focus on foreclosure overbids, just say, I'm interested in foreclosure overage funds. Can your office assist me? And I would start with the county treasurer. They will tell you yes or no, and knowing the county treasurer, they will give you some helpful advice to make your day that much easier. Who controls the lists? Well, there's going to be a department. Again, let's talk about the county treasurer. Somebody in charge there, the treasurer, likely has a support staff. And that support staff, there's probably one guy or gal who sits at what they call their foreclosure desk and who is responsible for doing all things having to do with that foreclosure every year. That's setting it up and sending out the letters and, putting together whatever bid forms are needed, all of that. One of those responsibilities likely will be maintaining that overage list, so they may have it right at their fingertips if you know who to ask. Like I said, start with the county treasurer. How to request the lists. We like to be friendly and informal and send an email or make a phone call. That's how we start. We ask for their help, and sometimes they actually give it to us. Sometimes not, but sometimes they do. If that doesn't work, then we have to make a formal public records request. We can do that because we know the laws. We know what our rights are. We've looked at that, and we know we're entitled to this form or that form, and that's what we'll ask for. Now, let's be really clear. This is not the Freedom of Information Act. A lot of people seem to get hung up on that, and they request things using the Freedom of Information Act. That does not apply to what we're dealing with here today. Freedom of Information Act is a federal law. It works with federal agencies, not state or county agencies, typically. So you will have your own Public Records Act, Public Records statutes, and those are the statutes we will be using. Suggestions. Start slow. Don't hit everybody at once. Don't do a mass email to everybody until you've done it with at least one and you've kind of figured it out and know what you're asking. If you're going to make mistakes, work at an agency that's a little bit out of the way, not in your backyard, say, so that you can learn there, and then it would make sense to go back and contact all the agencies, because you now know exactly the process that worked in the one, and you can use that same process with the others, and you don't make that same mistake, however many counties are in your state sort of ways, Interestingly, there will be pushback. You have to be prepared for it. We can kind of guarantee it. It happens all the time. They don't want to give us anything, really. I mean, when we're making these phone calls and emails, we're just creating more work for them, and they'd like to get us to go away. They're almost trained, I would think, to make us go away. So there will be pushback. They will say, we don't have a list, we can't help you, or any number of things. Be prepared for that, and we will be able to help you with all of the ways to make that actually happen. Mistakes you must avoid. You need to know the law. If you don't know your rights, then the Public Records Act doesn't do you any good. It's also important that we're friendly with the staff. We try to make a big point of being friendly whenever we contact them. We even go overboard about it. You should do the same. When things don't work out, try not to send nasty emails or make frustrating phone calls. That doesn't help in the end. It just creates a bigger problem. And since these counties are connected, if you screw up and make a big screw up, they'll all want to talk about it. They'll want to talk about you. So it's best not to do that. I had a buddy of mine who was dragged out of the county treasurer's office by the police screaming, "I will be your worst nightmare." Now, I can promise you, every other county treasurer heard about that story because it went around for many, many years. You don't want to be that guy. The takeaways. What is a list? Well, we know a list is a collection of information for our purposes. It has the claimant's information, at least something about it, likely a claim amount, and maybe some other good things. We know it's not simply a spreadsheet. It could be a handwritten note, or it could be a whole stack of documents. But whatever we get from that particular agency, that's what we're calling the list. Where do we find the lists? Government agencies hold these lists and maintain these lists. Who controls them? Well, within that agency, there's likely a department head, some staff, and somebody responsible for that particular record, that particular list. How do we request them? We make friendly, informal emails or phone calls, and we try to do it that way. If that doesn't work, we understand we have rights. Those lists are ours. They should be ours, and we will use our rights to request those lists. List gathering suggestions. Start slowly. Start someplace far, far away, and be prepared for the pushback, because it's going to happen. Mistakes to avoid when you get the pushback. Don't scream and yell at the counter. Don't send nasty emails. Just keep trying. Be friendly, and eventually that list will happen. Final thoughts. This is an important lesson. List gathering is sort of the foundation of this, and initially I can promise you it's going to be difficult. You're going to struggle with it. People aren't going to respond like you would expect or hope. And, it'll get a little bit tough, but stick with it. You know what's going to happen, so you can be prepared for it. And it'll be almost a game to see how many emails it takes until that list actually shows up in your inbox. I've reached double digits more than a few times, but it's worth the effort. And the beauty of it is all your competitors have to go through the same process in order to figure it out. And most of them will give up long before you do. That means you may be the only game in town once the dust settles. So however long it takes, it doesn't matter. It's just not quitting is the only thing that will count. And again, you figure it out, you got it. You figure it out in one county, it's going to work pretty much the same for every other county in your area. Simple as that. Now you can grab them all. You can make big requests for lots of agencies, and you'll have more leads and more claims coming your way than you could ever imagine.